I'm Brandon Triola, and you're listening to the Head Smack Podcast.
You are listening to conversations with misfits, mavericks, and trailblazers.
Hey, welcome to the Head Smack Podcast. My name is Paul Pavoni, and I have another misfit with me. I have Brandon Triola, and he is the author of the best-selling book, Save the Creatives. He also is the co-founder and chief creative officer of global brand and marketing consultancy for B2B tech companies called Forest.co. He lives in Franklin, Tennessee with his wife and 4 kids. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm really pumped.
Yeah, I'm really pumped as well. Love the hat. Love the topic of your book. Love the discussion that we're going to have today. I think it's going to help a lot of people, a lot of creatives, and even those within business. I think they're going to get some nuggets out of this, some head smacks that are going to help them along the way.
Yeah, thanks, man. For those listening on the podcast that can't see, my hat says "Save the Creatives," and the funny story about that is I made these hats about a year and a half ago, just as kind of like this is like a mantra, kind of like a rallying cry. I saw a lot of creative people getting sort of freaked out by what was happening with AI. The irony is, at the time, I had started writing a book and I was almost done with the manuscript. And I was working with my editor one day, and she said, "Look, the manuscript is looking great. There's not really any major changes. There's a few things we need to add, but." And she's really smart. She worked with major publishing companies, and she's like a legit book editor. Her name's Catherine. I'll give her a shout out here. She said to me, she goes, "Let me make a suggestion. I think you need to change the title."
Oh, well.
And I said, "Okay, I'm all ears." And I was wearing my Save the Creative hat, and I said, "What do you think I should call it?" And she just kind of pointed up. She was like, "You should call it that." And I was like, it was like a light bulb moment.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
funny because, right, as creative people, sometimes we think we have a good idea for something. It's not the best idea. It was awesome with her. And so instantly my brain exploded. I was like, we're changing the title. So we changed the title of the book to Save the Creatives: the 8 uncommon keys for achieving abundant success and bulletproofing your career against AI as a creative professional. And then I got so excited, it gave me a little bit of fire in my soul to get the book finished over the finish line. And so far it's been amazing. I mean, we've been on in the top 10 of an Amazon bestseller list for about a month now. We've almost gotten to number one a couple times. So, it's a best-selling book now, but it's cool to have seen it not just stay there, but so many creative people. I'm getting such great feedback on the book. It's really humbling. I wrote it to kind of the younger version of myself.
Yeah.
It's all the stuff that I've learned the past 15 years. There's a lot of stories of failure in there and stuff like that, but I didn't really think or believe that it would have the impact that it's had already. So I'm really thankful for it, because at the end of the day, I just want to help creative people. I don't feel like anybody's
Yeah.
really doing anything. So I will say I'm excited about your podcast, because I feel like you're trying to do that as well. I feel like you're interviewing people. I love the misfit thing. I've always felt like that a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I love what you're doing as well with this. I think it's giving creative people a voice. And then the creative people that listen to this, it's giving them courage. So I'm really excited and proud to be here.
Thanks, man. Well, I'm excited about it as well. I love the head smack moment of coming up with the title. That was amazing, and I think
It was a head smack moment.
for at least for me, like even with coming up with the title for this podcast, for me, it was I was wrestling with it for so long. I knew I wanted to do a podcast. I knew I wanted to kind of do something and interview some interesting people, but I just couldn't get the right title and the right thing. Like, what was it about? And it wasn't until I was on a long drive on a cross-state road trip, and the title came to me, and the subtitle came to me, "The Conversations with Misfits." And once I had that, then it was like, now it all comes together. And it sounds like that's what happened with coming up with the book title. It was like, oh yeah, that totally ties it all together. It's the big idea that I've been looking for.
Yeah, and I love that, because I feel like we do have those head smack moments, right, as creative people. And for me, things are very similar. Like when I'm working with clients, we have massive tech clients that we work with. And so there's a strategic process that you go through to land on certain things and to be creative. But then with my own stuff, it's a head smack. It's not the
Yeah.
same strategic roadmaps that I use in clients. They don't work with yourself sometimes. And sometimes it's
Right.
somebody pointing, or like a road trip that you go on where you just
Yeah.
have this moment where you're like, oh yeah, the dots are connecting. So I
Right.
love that.
Right, right. And for me at least, until I have that big idea, I feel like it's stuck. It's unfinished. Like I don't have my
Mm,
mind wrapped around it. I don't have a container for these million ideas going around in my head. And once I have that, that big idea around my stuff, like yeah, I'm the same
mhm.
way. I can create all kinds of stuff for other people, but when it comes to doing your own stuff, your own logo, your own branding, you kind of get stuck. And so for me, I was kind of stuck in that place, and it's like, well, what do I call it? What's the big idea? What do I really want to do? And once you got that, then it was like, that kind
Yeah,
of frames everything moving forward and made the big difference.
it's awesome. Yeah, I totally resonate. And I'll just tell, I haven't disclosed this to a lot of people, but I was originally going to call the book Talentish instead of Talented because for my entire career, I've always felt like I have mediocre talent at best. You see these other creatives and their work out in the world, and you're just like you're constantly comparing yourself. And for
Wow.
my whole career, I've never felt like I was the most talented, and yet I've succeeded in spite of that. And I started to realize 4 or 5 years ago there's like a theme, and I would meet these really talented creative people, and they would be struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. And then I would meet people like me or people that maybe they're not the most talented, but they have these intangible things. There's something that they have that some of the talented people don't have, and then how are they still able to be successful? So then it took me down this rabbit trail of studying just some of the most successful creatives and people of all time. And I use this analogy a lot in my content, but what I say is Kobe Bryant was not that talented. And I know a lot of basketball fans will get really mad when they hear that. But what they forget to realize about Kobe was that he was the first one in the gym at 4 a.m. every day. He was the last one to leave the gym every day after everybody was out. And this was how he lived his life. This was how he spent his entire career. So Kobe actually understood that it was the work that he had to put in that was going to make him great. He wasn't born with the innate ability to be who he was. And I started to see that in my own life. And so the book, I started writing from this perspective of talent is now a commodity. It's
Yeah.
table stakes to be talented. And what I see happening in the creative services industry is everybody's focusing on getting better at their craft, which you should, but that's table stakes. And now with AI, it's now a commodity. I mean, someone that's not even creative can now get access to creative tools. And so I started writing it from that perspective. And so when the editor was like, "Hey, we should change the title," it made total sense, and I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that's such a better title." It's a phrase that people can rally around, and
Right,
so
right.
it really was like a head smack moment, and I'm glad I didn't call it Talentish because I didn't. Looking back, it doesn't capture the essence of what the book's trying to equip people.
Okay, so you mentioned that you felt like a mediocre creative. So what I usually like to do, even with the podcast in starting it off, is I kind of want to hear little bit about your backstory, a little bit about your origin story. You can go as far back as you want, but just share a little bit about your origin story.
Yeah, that's awesome. My origin story starts at the kitchen table. My dad was a mechanical engineer. He's a brilliant, brilliant professional. He just retired a couple years ago, but I remember being 3 or 4 years old. And this was before people would had computers at their home, right? This is
Mm,
1991,
yeah, yeah,
maybe 92. And now you buy paper, right? Nobody bought computer paper because nobody had a computer. And so he would bring home sheets of paper from the office that had technical drawings of bearings and wheels and brakes on them. He worked for a major aerospace corporation. And we would draw on the back side where they were blank. We would sit at
yeah,
the table
yeah,
and we would draw Ninja Turtles and we would draw the S from Superman and we would draw the Batman symbol
like
and
this.
we would draw superheroes. And I just became obsessed with drawing.
Yeah,
And I've always been creative naturally. I was never really good at math or anything like that, but it was actually my dad that saw that and nurtured and encouraged that creative element in all of us as kids and
yeah. Wow.
believed in us. And so where it really all took off was 15 years old in high school. I'm obsessed with basketball. There's a magazine. There's a major basketball magazine to this day. It's called Slam Magazine. For any of the hoopers listening to this, everybody knows Slam Magazine. It's the Vogue of basketball. And every single issue opens and starts with a table of contents. And growing up, there was always a really cool illustration.
Mm.
It was some artist or somebody would put something in there and the magazine would feature it, and it was a basketball player, it would be like a shoe, and I thought that was the coolest part of the magazine. So every issue, I would beg my mom, "Can I get a copy?" And it was 5 or $6 at the time with early 2000s, that's a lot of money. She would always get me a copy. I would open it, I would look at that illustration, then I would go try to draw it, and it just fed my soul, and so I remember growing up in Northeast Ohio, LeBron James was about to enter the NBA draft. Everybody thought he was going to get drafted by the Cavs, but we weren't sure. We were hoping for it where I grew up. Well, I had been watching him play in high school, and we would go to games because I grew up 10 minutes from LeBron. I was self, and so I drew this caricature, and I can send you a still shot of it if you want to put it on the video. I drew this like detailed caricature illustration of LeBron with a crown. It said King James, and he had like a scepter and a Cavs jersey. And I thought it was the coolest thing. And it was my dad that came to me and said, "Hey, why don't you send that into the magazine?" I was like, "What?
Oh,
I'm
wow. Yeah.
16. Like, well, I can't do that." And he was like, "Why not?" He said, can you locate the address for the publishing house that publishes the magazine?" Sure. Flip the magazine over, look on the fine print. I found it. Sure enough, I don't remember where it was, but I found the address. I went to the grocery store because we didn't have a photocopier, and I put it in the scanner because the Giant Eagle or the IGA or whatever had like a section where you could do that. I put the original in. I make a copy because my dad was like, "Don't send the original; they might not give it back." I make a copy of this illustration. I write a letter out to Slam Magazine. "Hey, my name's Brandon Triola. I'm 16 years old. I'm a massive fan. Please publish this. I would love it if you guys would feature this in your magazine. I'm not asking for money." And I enveloped it, sealed it, and sent it off. A week goes by, a month, next issue, nothing. Another month, next issue, nothing. But then the October issue of Slam Magazine, you can look this up, has Carmelo Anthony on the cover. He's got a Denver Nuggets jersey. Never forget going to the grocery store, going to the aisle, opening it, flipping that cover open, and on the inside, there's my illustration with LeBron James
Wow.
featured in the magazine. And that
Oh,
when I
man, that's
tell you
amazing.
that it was like a line of cocaine as a creative person, I was addicted at that point, and I decided I wanna be creative for the rest of my life. And then I
Wow.
didn't even know at the time you could get paid for this. So that was like a moment of ignition for me,
Yeah.
and it just sparked something in my soul that, "Oh my gosh, like, that was really easy. I just asked and they put this in there and I could do." So that's where it all started for me. There's other moments that I talk about in the book of realizing that I could actually get paid for being creative. So because when I was coming out of high school in 2005, if you said to anyone you wanted to be like a graphic designer or something like that or a writer, they would laugh. That
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
not a thing you could make money doing. And then the gig economy sort of erupted 2009, 2010, and then Adobe makes, Creative Cloud and started to democratize the usage of these tools. And so I feel like I'm here for such a time as this, but that's kind of my origin story. And that's why I'm
Yeah.
so encouraging to creatives because for me, it's always taken people believing in me to get to that point where I'm actually doing things that I feel like are making impact.
Yeah, man, that's such a great story. That's amazing. Yeah, I remember one of the first times that I was publicly validated for my creativity because I never thought it was anything, and I'm not that good at drawing things. Like I'm not that great of an artist. Like I'm average to below average. Like I'm really not that great.
That's how I feel,
And
honestly.
so for me, when I was in high school, I went to an all boys high school, so there weren't a whole lot of kids that drew. Like they were all preparing to be a tradie. They were all preparing to
Hmm.
go into some trade. But I remember we had a famous cartoonist that did caricatures and stuff come to our school, and he was doing caricatures of stuff, and then they said, well, we have a creative guy here, Paul. Hey, Paul, why don't you come up here? And so he drew a caricature of me. And they said, okay, Paul, you draw a caricature of him. And I was like, I've never done a caricature in my life. But, suddenly the whole school was there like looking at me. And so I kind of winged it and just came up with something. But for me, that was a moment that like validated my creativity and showed me that, it is something to be celebrated. It is something that I could possibly make a living out of. I still didn't know what that meant. I wasn't,
Yeah.
graphic art wasn't on my radar, or communication. What do they call it? Graphic communication, like that wasn't on
Hmm.
my radar. I didn't know that that existed. Like maybe I saw it on Bewitched, the whole
Yeah.
marketing type thing, but I didn't know there was an industry of that. Like I guess I was just super
And I
ignorant.
don't feel like for me, I really resonate with that. I don't feel like I knew myself enough when I was younger to know that maybe that's where I wanted to aim
Yeah.
my skill set. Like, for example, we had a marketing class. It was like an elective class that I could have taken in high school. And I was like, marketing, lame.
Yeah.
Looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I would have got A's in this. Like, why didn't
Yeah.
I want to do this? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like for a lot of young people, that's probably normal. But for creative people, there's stuff like that, and where we just don't know sometimes where
Right.
we want to aim ourselves.
Right. Right. And for me, because I couldn't draw that well, like there was other kids in school, in primary school and whatever that, they could draw like really well and it was really
Mm,
realistic. And I was like, well, I'm super creative. Like I love creative thinking. I love creative problem solving. I love creativity. I love the arts. I love drama and acting and all of that and
yeah,
film. But where does somebody like me fit in? And it wasn't until I discovered graphic design when I went on kind of a work experience thing at a studio that one of the teachers had set up. And I saw that, oh, as a graphic artist, you can use other people's drawings and you could use
yeah,
other people's photography. You just
yeah,
need to put it together in a way that looks good. And for me, that was a head smack, as far
yeah.
as what the opportunities were out there for a kid that is not super talented in one area, but you can augment what you are good at with people that are good at those areas.
People there's a lot of people right now that are mad at Adobe. I feel like a lot of creatives, you're in one of two camps, right? Either you're a sellout if you use AI, or like it's awesome and you're all in on it. And I I'm not gonna, subscribe to a side. I think that there's some unethical things happening. I think that the models that AI is training on without permission, like I don't think that's right. And I think we're about to see a whole introduction of regulatory things happen in the next 5 years that
Yeah.
most of us are not ready for yet. However, I do believe that AI also is the future, and that creatives that aren't catching onto it or getting on the wave at all, like, you're cooked, I feel like.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
don't have to talk about that a lot today. We can, but what I was going to say about Adobe was, it was a friend giving me an old laptop in like 2006, and he had a copy of Photoshop on this laptop. And I started playing around, and he had these brushes. So for those of you that know Photoshop, you can
Yeah.
get preset brushes that are like images, and it's like a stamp. And he had all these weird images, and I remember sitting there and like making these collages, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing. What if I put this on a shirt?" So then you go to Google and you grab a JPEG of a shirt and you put it on there, and then you put it in Photoshop and you stamp your image on there. You're designing T-shirts, just messing around. Well, it was a friend who was older who was a graphic designer for a living, and he saw some of the stuff I was doing. He goes, "Hey, you're really good." He goes, "You could probably get paid to do this." And I was like, "Yeah, right." And he goes, "No, like really, I think so." He goes, "Hey, I have a connection to this major bands, this group of bands. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Warped Tour, which was major.
Wow.
All the top bands in the world." He goes, "Yeah, I know the merch director. I'm always designing shirts for them." He goes, "Why don't you let me submit a couple designs for you, and we'll see what happens." And I was like, "You would do that for me?" He was like, "Yeah." So he walked me in. He was what I call a door person. I talk about this in my book.
Yeah.
So I did a bunch of designs for this band and sent them to him. This is a really funny story, 'cause it'll tell you how inexperienced I was, but also how amazing people are.
Yeah.
Sure enough, he emails me back a couple days later. He goes, "Guess what? I sent like 6 or 7." He goes, "They chose 2 of your designs. You're gonna get $125 per design." I made 250 bucks. It was the most money I ever seen in my life at that time. It's like
Yeah.
2007 at the time.
Yeah.
And if you thought I was hooked before, at that point, I was like, "What? This is real?" Now the funny thing is, he goes, "Yes, send me the vector art."
Oh, no.
And I was like, "The what?" "Yes, send me the layered vector art so that way they can print them." And I was like, I'm Googling what is vector art,
Yeah,
right?
wow.
he had to recreate all my artwork and separate the colors out because I didn't know how to do it, and it was so funny.
Oh,
I ended up
wow.
giving him, like, $50 from all that money or whatever, but, like, I knew nothing, but to that point, these tools sort of illuminated a path for me of what could be possible, and then obviously I had to learn, color separation and vector artwork and all of that, but I'm thankful to these tools like Adobe and, all of them, right? You can lump Figma and Canva and all these things in there.
Yeah.
These tools are what have taken something where there was a barrier, where you had to have a lot of money and a lot of experience to get in the game, and what they did was they shortened the barrier. I call it like this value gap, and they've taken it and they've gone like this, and they've democratized them, and yet people that aren't talented can get a hold of them and make bad things or things that aren't good. But also, it's democratized this being creative for a living for people who maybe aren't going to be a temp, who maybe aren't going to be a nurse, who maybe aren't going to be a teacher. They're not going to be an
Right,
aerospace
right.
engineer. And so I'm thankful to these tools, for these brands, for building these tools for people like us.
Right. Well, and there are tools that even are beyond Adobe that are kind of getting into the fray. I know Apple has made
Yep.
announcements about a toolbox that they're creating. With
Hmm.
like you mentioned already, Canva. I've seen a lot
Yeah.
of great artists using Procreate to create
I
amazing
love
things.
Procreate. Yep.
And then what's interesting is kind of when I got into the industry, I'm significantly older than you. It was using Quark Express. You had to use Quark Express,
Yes, I remember.
and you had
Corel
to
Draw?
know how to output files the right way, and if you didn't output them the right way to the printer would be like, absolutely not, this is wrong,
Yeah.
redo it, kind of thing. Whereas I think now even the printing industry has adapted to the naivety of some of the people that are creating stuff, and so they're
Yep.
adapting to, okay, we got this kind of a file, yes, we can output it for you on a t-shirt, or we can
Yeah.
output it on whatever, because they're realizing, like you had mentioned, the barrier of entry into creating creative works and getting it out there has shortened, and there is no barrier anymore. And so the people that output the creative have needed to adjust, right?
Yeah, and a really good example of what you're saying is Amazon. So a lot of people still don't know this, but you can take a photo on your iPhone. Let's just say you're at the beach with your spouse or your kids. You can take a photo of them or the beach. You can go to Amazon and upload that photo and have it printed out onto a canvas, and they will
Mhm.
ship it to you. But they know the parameters, and so it's got to be a certain resolution. But it's like they know that people are going to use it this way, so they had to make it dumb proof.
Yeah,
But you
yeah.
remember back in the day, there were these platforms, and if you wanted to print something like a custom artwork on a canvas or even a print, you had to have, it had to be CMYK formatted and it had to be
Right,
300 DPI and all these things. Well, now Amazon is just like they've made it possible to do that with a click from your iPhone.
right, right.
I mean, it's astonishing where we started and how this gap has just shortened so that literally anybody can be creative. And this is what I'm trying to tell creative people. Anybody can learn to use the tools. Like somebody right now can go and download a free version of Canva. And by the end of the day, they can be making money selling their artwork.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's awesome, but also that's scary because now the talent gap has shortened. And so now it doesn't require years and years. It doesn't require, we had to pay like $1,800 and Photoshop came on a disc.
Right,
People
right.
don't
We had to
remember
load it with
that. Like,
like
so
5
only if you could
CDs or
afford,
whatever.
yeah. So you either had to steal it and rip it offline, or you had to have enough money to get it. But AI has now taken this shortened gap and they've almost obliterated it. That gap is now like a thin line. So
Yeah,
anybody can create. And so what I'm trying to get through to creative people is your talent is being commoditized. And if you focus on just the creative work, it's only going to get harder to stand out. You have to focus on the other things that separate you from anybody using the tool or from the tool. And the good news is those are things that anybody can learn. Back to the word talent, you
yeah.
don't have to be talented to do or become any of the things that make you successful as a creative.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you've mentioned Adobe quite a few times, and your feelings about Adobe. I kind of have a love hate
Sure.
relationship with where they're at right now, because I feel that they've created tools to replace the people that brought them to where they're at.
Mm,
And so I can now use Photoshop to create things that I once would have had to hire somebody who knew how to use Photoshop to create those things. or I can create things in Illustrator that once I would need to hire an illustrator to create those very things, whereas now Illustrator creates it right within the tool. And so that kind of almost feels like a betrayal in some ways for me,
Mm.
because instead of now having to hire an illustrator to create an illustration in the style of whatever, I can just type it in and I can get something really, really good. And now that illustrator doesn't have a source of income. That illustrator is no longer an option because I don't need them. And so Adobe created these tools to replace the very people that brought them success. And so that's where kind of my love
Yeah.
hate is with that. But I also love the tools, and I've used the AI tools within the Adobe products. And so that does kind of change, I think, for a lot of maybe old school designers, people that have been around and seen the evolution of it, because they're like, man, now people are no longer needing me because AI is kind of taken its place.
Yeah, I love that, and I actually agree with you, and I'll play devil's advocate. It's always been hard to make money as an illustrator. I mean, you've if you wanna make a career out of an illustrator and sell your illustrations to the New York Times and become an editorial illustrator, I mean, it's always been tough. You
Yeah,
can't just be anybody and do it. If you stake your career on being an illustrator and you haven't evolved at all or expanded your skill set, that's a whole 'nother conversation. Like,
yeah,
that was hard before AI, so it's almost like it's too late to complain a little bit. So what I think creative people need to understand is this is a moment where you can get mad and you can slam your fist down, or this is a moment where you can take the opportunity to learn and evolve and change
yeah,
and
yeah,
respect yourself a little bit. If
yeah,
you follow any successful person in history, they all follow this one thing, and the one thing is they know when and how to reinvent themselves, and they've all
right,
reinvented themselves.
right,
Sometimes they reinvent themselves and go back to what they were, but we are evolving creatures, and what I get frustrated is when I see a creative person that's like, "Nope, I'm one thing. I'm a photographer, and I'm just gonna take photos forever, and that's it." What if you learned how to operate a video camera? What if
yeah,
you learned art direction and creative direction, and you could go be a strategic mind on major film sets? What if
right,
you took the core skill that you had and you just expanded it? And so when I see a creative person that's totally resistant, I see a person who's being antithetical to what they are because we are by nature creative.
yeah,
We are, which
yeah,
is what? We are an iteration who loves to iterate. We are
right,
good at iterating and finding and expanding and changing and morphing and evolving. So artificial intelligence is introducing a moment for us to step into this with curiosity. And I'm not saying bow to the tool. I'm
right,
not saying sacrifice yourself on the altar of technology. I'm saying use this, take advantage of this moment to change and expand and learn. And one of the chapters in my book, which is amazing because a lot of this book, the stuff that other people taught me, talks about this core skill called uh, cross-functional keys. It's one of the core keys of the book. So when I was at this coaching thing back in 2018, and I was learning from this guy that was an executive at Walmart and Disney, former executive. And he said something during his talk that it was like a breadcrumb for me. He's like, "Yeah, I didn't really go to a good school, and I went to a small school." And then he just kind of brushed over it. But I came back to that, and I was like, "Hey, earlier in your talk, you said that you kind of just went to a small school. You didn't really start off with a silver spoon. How did you scale to the executive level of Walmart and Disney?" He said, "That's really interesting you asked that." He goes, "There's two things that I did. I invested in building a tool belt of cross-functional skills and certifications." And at this
mhm,
moment in my career, it was a light bulb moment for me because I felt like I was bumping into a ceiling. And so what that illuminated was, oh my gosh, if you want to be abundantly successful, you actually have to expand and you have to develop cross-functional skills because that's what increases your value in the marketplace.
right,
So
right,
after that, I started learning brand strategy. I started learning marketing strategy. I started not transforming totally into those things, but learning those skills. And so what AI is doing in this moment is it's illuminating this opportunity for creative people to be able to easily learn these cross-functional skills, where
right.
before it took lots of time, but now you can use AI to teach you things that make you more valuable to the market than if you continue to just stay a one-dimensional whatever, insert whatever skill you want to be.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that, and I know you mentioned you're playing devil's advocate, but I totally agree with that side of it. While I am angry at it, it's just part of evolution. It's just part of technology. There's a lot of disciplines within the creative arts that are gone by the wayside because of
Yeah.
how tools have changed things. There's when I came into this industry, there's a lot of people that were used for pre-press and for getting proofs ready for you to look at, of your designs once they were outputted and all of that stuff that they had to evolve in what they were doing. And so I think creatives, you're right in that creatives need to learn how to augment what they're doing with AI, or else they'll fall by the wayside. And if you're an illustrator, you've got to you might be hot right now. Like I have a friend who's an illustrator, and he's done work for Nike and the biggest companies out there.
He's not getting replaced.
And he well, but the thing, but here it is. But here's the thing: he was hot for a time, and
Yeah,
he was getting nonstop work. But then he saturated the market, and they were like, "Well, that's all you do, but we kind of want something different." And so suddenly he was famous, but he wasn't rich and famous. He was just
exactly.
famous. And so, because he didn't change his styles, he didn't adapt, he didn't evolve, he kind of got into this place where he's like, dude, I am struggling right now. Like, I can't get any work. And there was a time when he was in every publication, design publication, and all of that stuff. And he's like, I can't get work right now. Like, I'm really struggling because he didn't evolve, and because he had a certain style that he did all the time. And he evolved eventually, and then there was a fresh getting busy and nonstop business. But I think that's where AI can help you, is you need to augment what you do really, really well and find a way to bring AI into it, because that'll change, because everybody's had to adapt. And I had one illustrator when I was an art director that he would submit artwork that he had airbrushed, like old
Mm,
school airbrushed. And I told him, I said, dude, you've got to do this stuff in Photoshop. He's like, well, I've never used Photoshop. Like I've been, and his stuff, he's another artist, a
yeah,
different one, but his stuff has appeared in every major publication, and graphic design, as well as, Newsweek, Time, stuff like that.
it's amazing.
But he was like, I've never done stuff in Photoshop. And I forced him, because I'm like, I need this project in Photoshop, so you got to learn Photoshop. And
Yeah,
he did, and now that's all he does. And he's like evolved, and now he's like super busy doing all kinds of
yep.
stuff. And he's like, man, if it wasn't for that project, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now at the rate I am and how I am. And so, another case of augmenting with new technology what you've always done to make you better.
And imagine had he not had you to speak up.
Yeah.
I mean, I deal with this every week, and it's so funny because there's this whole conversation happening around AI, but I feel like most creative professionals are still behind with some of these other things. I mean, I talked to a team yesterday. They're designing slides in Adobe Illustrator. And I said, "Do you realize slide decks to present to their clients? This is an agency."
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you realize how much time this is costing you and how much money? Why are you not using Google Slides? Why are you not using Figma to collaborate? Miro. I mean, there's pick your tool.
Right.
I mean, I'm not
Right.
advocating for one over the other. They're not even using the cloud-based version where people can go in and see and comment. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going, why don't we want to evolve?"
Right.
One of the most brilliant brand designers that I know, one of the guys I look up to this guy creatively. He just now started using Figma last week.
Wow.
And I'm going, guys, what what is the problem that we have with changing?
Yeah.
Why can't we evolve? This is it's highlighting something deeper, and that's a lot of us are set in our ways. We don't like change. We don't like what's new. We're blaming it on AI. And I just think that kind of childish, actually. Like, this is the time to step in. This is the fourth, fifth industrial revolution, whatever you want to say. And it's all going to be totally different next week again.
Yeah.
So the longer that we all stay resistant, the harder it's only going to be as all of this changes. And what creative people I think need to understand is that there are three kinds of AI that you need to think about, because everybody's mad at generative AI. There's only one kind of AI. So when I talk to a creative person and they're mad and they call me an AI sellout or something, I'm like, whoa, whoa, hold on, pump your brakes. You've been using AI in Photoshop for 10 years to do the clone replace something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say, have you ever used that? And if they say, I say, you're an AI sellout. Like, there are tools embedded within our tools that have been using artificial intelligence for a decade. People don't realize that. And so there's three kinds of AI. There's generative AI, which, yeah, if you have a graphic designer on staff and you fire them and your CEO just starts using Chat GPT to crank out crap, that's stupid.
Yeah.
But there's also analytical AI. There's AI that helps you think and helps you strategize. And that is actually the AI that I'm trying to get creative people to begin to use because it will speed up their process. It'll make them better. It'll make them more efficient. So I think about AI like a ring. I'm actually working on this thing right now called the AI value ring. I'll have to share it with you guys when it's done. But AI is like a pizza, and in the middle is the core human thing that you do. So that's brand design, photography, videography, and that's the thing that needs the most space. That's the thing that actually AI can't replace yet. It can help with, but it can't replace yet. It's not good enough. So the value is lower when you try to use it on the center of the pizza, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where everybody's getting mad and they're going, "No, we're against AI." But then there's another layer out around that, and that is the augmentation layer. And that's where you use AI to augment what you do. You use AI to help you do strategy. You use AI to help you do research. You use AI to help you get to 100 bad ideas really fast, which is how everyone should be using it actually for creative. But then there's another outer ring around all of it that's called agentic AI. And agentic AI are what all the tech companies are building to shorten the man hour processes for the manual things that aren't creative. So what
Mm.
creative people need to understand is when we start thinking about AI the right way, we'll think about it as these layers and not all evil in the middle, but actually AI is good. And when you wrap your brain around how it's helping and going to help you do your job better and faster, it makes it easier to go, okay, I'll step into this with a little bit of curiosity and realize it's not here to replace me. There's actually real opportunity for me to use it to get my work done faster so that I can charge
Right.
a higher project rate and not be punished for getting paid hourly. Maybe not have to hire as a creative business owner so many people to do manual tasks. Maybe I can just hire really good creatives and all the admin things can be done with agentic AI. I mean, this is the reality that we're going to. And so
Right.
to
Right.
not get a little bit excited about it, I think is a sign that we've probably been sold a little bit of a lie in the media that AI is just totally evil and it's just here to take over creatives. And I just don't believe that it's the case.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that is the future that it's unavoidable. And I think this is AI really is one of the biggest changes to pretty much all industries. I used to say since the invention of the internet, but I think it's since the invention of the computer. Like it is
Yeah.
such a radical shift in how things are done. By so many people, and it's affecting the white collar. Like we used to talk about, yeah, blue collar, you're going to get replaced by robots and whatever, but us white collar people, that's the kind of job that'll never get replaced, especially creatives. Nobody can replace a creative. And it's like, well, we're at a time where you can get some pretty good stuff. Now it's the best of average, and it's not always as innovative, or sometimes creative comes out of mistakes and unique pattern recognition
Yep.
and unique combinations, all of those things that sometimes that the human mind can bring to a project. But still, like if you're okay with average, if you're okay with stuff that is not you know innovative or super different from anything else out there, then you can produce some pretty good stuff.
Yeah. It really can. I mean, and it can produce a lot of bad stuff as well. And that's what most people see online, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
but we have a team, and with the way that we use it with our team is really interesting. We work with technology clients, global tech companies, big companies. And the other thing that I'm trying to get the gig economy to understand, because I see it from both sides. I did the freelance. I had a solo brand studio for like almost 10 years before we started Forest. What people have to understand is the market is demanding that we use AI.
Yeah.
So the companies that hire creative services, they are expecting what they've been sold in the media. Oh, AI will make everything better, faster, cheaper. Now, whether that's right or whether that's wrong or whether you agree with it or not, that's beside the fact. But what creative people forget, because we're emotional and we're deeply connected to our work. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with that. But what we
Right.
forget is that the market determines the value, not us.
Yeah.
So the example I use is we do a lot of social media content for our clients. We had a large consultancy as a client. They're a top 10 $1 billion consulting firm. They were a client of ours for years. They're not anymore. We're still friends with them, but for years we had them as a client. Well, we would write blog articles for them weekly, monthly, tons of blog articles. And we used to charge $2,200 per article. Now, to write one of these articles requires a writer, a strategist to meet with an SME, a subject matter expert from the consulting team, interview them for 1 or 2 hours, extract all the stuff that they think that makes it really valuable and insightful, and then write and turn that into a really valuable SEO ready blog post. This used to be a really heavy lift of a thing. And quite frankly, to write good articles, you still need a good writer.
Yeah.
So, but here's the crazy thing that happened. The day that ChatGPT became public and people were able to start using it, it was a couple days after that, we got a call from this client and they were like, yeah, you got to lower the prices on your blogs now. And
Wow.
it just made something really clear to me. And that is, well, we weren't even fully using the tools yet, but the market shifted its expectation and its value based off of what it was hearing and learning and seeing. So to the creative person, the market demands we use these tools. You don't have the luxury of going, no, not me. I'm against AI. You're
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
go, okay, thanks for talking to me.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
going to talk to somebody else. We have to think about having a POV. We have to think about how we're going to be using these. We have to be ready. I have to show my clients how we're using it. They expect it. And
Right.
also,
Right.
now, because we have to use it, it's actually helping us get faster at certain things. And now our writers are using AI.
Right.
Our designers are using it to concept and mood board and get to a bad idea fast so that they can use their human skill to make the good idea. And I just think that we as creatives have to remember and understand that we don't determine the value, the market determines the value.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember talking to somebody that was part of a pretty large agency. And they said, yeah, we had a client meeting and the client, asked us, well, how are you guys using AI? And he said, well, we told him, oh, we're not using AI. We don't use it at all. And I told him, I said, dude, that was the wrong answer. That was the wrong answer. You are going to have to use AI and you're going to figure out how you use AI and how you talk about using AI, because telling a client that you don't use AI, like you were saying, it seems like, what are you carving this, with a chisel into stone? Like, what are you doing? That you've got to be using it, because you're not serving us the best you can. It almost seems like, right?
Yeah, and with that though, there are moments where we have to say, we're not going to use AI for this. It's not going to be
Yeah,
good what you get. And
yeah,
they trust us because they see how we use it. They understand how we think about it. And for us, it's a little bit easier, right? Because our clients are all tech companies. So in the last year and a half, a lot of our clients have come to us and they said, we have to tell our story around AI. And they're all pivoting. So maybe they're just selling tech services, or maybe they have a tech platform they sell. All of a sudden, it has to be AI first now. And everything they do has to be AI. Well, they don't know how to do storytelling. They don't know how to build a brand strategy around that. So a lot of our work right now is helping them create, articulate, find, and come up with what is that strategic narrative for their business around AI. Well, if we don't have a POV on AI and we're against it, why would they hire us to help them tell their story with it?
yeah,
So I
yeah,
say that two ways. It's a little easier for us because we're in the market where AI is in high demand. But also, when you look at any industry right now, people are just, they have a changed perspective around creative work. And that is, okay, AI is here. It's going to be better, faster, cheaper. It's our job to either make that come true for them or teach them and show them, hey, maybe what you want isn't realistic, and here's why. Let me help you get what you need.
yeah. Do you think it's also an opportunity for the rise of creative directors, editors, people with intuition and instinct and experience that could, that could help AI, as opposed to, just AI, whatever it generates, but a creative director, somebody with a level of experience and intuition and instinct that could take that creative to the next level. Because just taking whatever is output can sometimes, like you said, it could be junk, it could be ineffective, it could be off strategy, it could be not good for what that brand is doing. And so you still need somebody as a creative director or somebody as an editor to read this copy and say, yeah, this isn't really aligning with some things, or this just doesn't feel right, or this doesn't read right, or this doesn't flow right. It doesn't work. Do you see that as also an evolution of the place of creatives within even an agency or even an in-house, creative team or whatever is elevating their their position from just being a mouse jockey to a strategist?
Yeah, I think that's an amazing question, actually, Paul. And I think we're going to see over the next 2 to 5 years, like this, an advent like we've never seen before around the value of creative leadership and creative direction. I mean, sure, there's creative directors and art directors, but we're going to see the value for that skyrocket more than ever in history because AI, these LLMs, they just data processors. They're only as good as the data that you put into it. The most valuable creatives in any industry, any field. So pick your thing, writing, videography, are the ones who have an expanded palette of tastes that they've developed over years, because they're the ones that can give the best inputs to create the best product.
Yeah.
So the real example that I use is we have senior level designers on our team. We have junior level designers. If I give them both the same artificial intelligence tool, and I ask them to build me a mood board or build me a stylistic direction for something, who do you think will create the better, more cohesive, more emotional, more deeper, just better overall, objectively better thing? It's not the junior, it's the senior level person
Right.
who has has earned their scars over the decades,
Yeah.
and has a palette of taste, and they understand, and they know every detail from, yeah, the lighting needs to be moody on this image to the tone of the writing. It's nothing against juniors. You can still be low skill, low talent, low experience and do amazing things. But the creative direction element of it is so massively important right now. And I do think that that's not what is getting talked about a lot.
Yeah.
Taste. And I've heard Chris Do talk about this. I've heard tech founders talk about this, but taste is the key. And so if you're a creative person and you're a little bit freaked out, the best thing you can do this weekend is go to a coffee shop and go to an antique store and go to an old bookstore and just immerse yourself in architecture and learn about trees and learn about leaves outside and learn about different kinds of birds and study the different kinds of whatever. Learn about musicians that you've never heard of and study abstract art and just turn your brain into like this Pinterest board of taste.
Yeah.
That's what's going to produce the most valuable people that use AI over the next. We're going to see it jump in the next 2 to 5 years. Watch. You're going to see courses. People are going to develop courses. They're going to sell courses about creative direction, art direction. I saw something where somebody was even a course on like art history, an art history app for your phone that you download. That every day it sends you things for art to help you learn and understand art history because we've lost our taste as a creative society.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's here, like it's already here, it's happening. And so
Right.
I do believe we're going to see a massive jump in this stuff.
Yeah, I think the rebirth of the Renaissance man, because
Yes.
that's where you develop the taste, the intuition, the insight, the instinct that takes time. It takes absorbing, and I've often said that sometimes I'm a sponge, and so I absorb all these different influences and all these
Yeah.
different
I
things.
love your background. You got the superhero stuff back
Yeah,
there. Like,
yeah. But when it comes to then creating, is like I'm squeezed, and what comes out is this
so
this
good.
this combination of all these influences, this combination of all these things that I've absorbed in my life, in my pursuits, in my interests, in my hobbies, in my downtime, soaking in. And then when it comes time to be creative, I'm squeezed, and what comes out is this new thing that is something that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't had taste or had interest or been that Renaissance man of different interests. And you're absolutely right. I think that really is the future, where you're developing people that are more strategy based. And you'd mentioned the junior designers too. I remember when I was a early designer in my young days. design was so emotional at that point for me. It wasn't strategic, it was emotional. And so I'd create this design and I'd present it like an infant, and say, love my baby,
Yeah.
and they said, your baby's ugly. And I'm like, no, it was like the worst thing in the world, because they didn't love my baby that I thought was the best thing ever created. And I think that's where maturity comes in, is you start thinking more strategically and realizing that, yeah, it wasn't quite solving the problem. Now, it was some great Photoshop effects, and there's some great, things that I did in freehand, but, it didn't solve the problem. It was just something emotional. And I think that's where you're going to have to, as a designer, I think, evolve from, creating these things out of just as a love child, but it's also got to be strategic. And you develop that strategy through this experience of insight and making sure that you stay
Yeah.
on strategy. You're not just creating to create, because it's not going to solve the problem that you're needing to solve for the client.
Man, that's so good. I love that. I really resonate with that. And what I see in the market too, to what you just said, is the people that hire creative services professionals, they actually want someone strategic right now. They
Yeah.
don't just want an order taker. And part of the thing that creative people need to do is we need to change how we see ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you just see yourself as a mouse clicker, like you said earlier, it's going to be hard. You're going to be discouraged. The good news is the people that want to spend a lot of money on creative services, they don't just want somebody to make the logo bigger. They
Right.
want somebody to actually guide them and lead them strategically. So again, back to this being a moment. This is the moment for you, if you're listening to this as a creative person, to look in the mirror and not just see yourself as an order taker anymore, but to really go, what does the strategic version of me look like? What does the confident strategic version of me sound like and feel like? And that's the person, if you'll step into becoming that and helping your client or your employer think strategically, that's what they want. And that's what they
Right.
want to pay for.
Right.
So this is the moment to become that and believe that you can be that, because you can, and step into that a little bit.
Right, right. Yeah, I think the age of the mouse jockey is coming to a close, or at least it's headed that way. The people that made a living on Fiverr and 99 Designs and some of those where, the stuff was okay, but it wasn't fantastic. I mean, AI can replace those guys, and so they're going to suffer, and that's kind of bad because a lot of them came from countries where that income made a big difference for them and their family and all of
Mhm.
that. But they've got to also learn how to evolve with what's happening as well. And so, with your book coming out, with your book being out, we've talked about some of the principles. I know you have like 8 keys in there, and you've talked about some of them. What are some others that you want to share? I mean, we're already almost come up to an hour, and it feels like it's only been 10 minutes. So, what are some other principles that you want to make sure you share that can really help save the creatives?
Yeah, so I'll give a little overview of my story real quick, and we'll kind of close with this. When my wife and I got married, I took the opportunity to, like, okay, I'm going to be creative for a living. I'm going to actually do this. I was doing some ministry stuff. I was like on staff at a church, and I've been doing some design on the side. And I actually moved from Ohio to Tennessee, and I totally started over. I didn't know anybody, and I felt like this is the time for me to actually do this. This is my moment of reinvention. Now I have a family. I have to provide. Okay, I'm going to go all in on the creative thing. Well, the sad reality is, for the first year, I think I maybe made like $1,500 total for the year. I mean, it
Whoa.
was really, really hard. In fact, it was so hard. The first sign that it was hard was we couldn't afford a Christmas tree at Goodwill. We stood in the aisle of Goodwill looking at a used Christmas tree. It was $12. And I was literally like counting in my head how much money will be left in the bank if we bought the tree.
Wow.
That's when I started to realize maybe this isn't working out. Fast forward a couple months, we have to move out of our apartment. We have to move back in with my in laws. And for me, it was the moment carrying boxes of our stuff back into the bedroom where my wife grew up, going, I don't like how this feels. I don't
Yeah.
like
Wow.
what I'm experiencing right now. And I've got to find a way out of this. Well, the book, I wrote it kind of from that start, and then a fast forward where I have a multi-million-dollar business. It's so weird for me to say out loud, and I hate to say it, but I have to show the contrast. So our business employs at any given time 10 to 20 people. We have clients all over the world. It's amazing what we've accomplished. And I go, how did this happen? So the book is literally just me. It's just me re-engineering, reverse engineering how I got from that poor dude who couldn't even afford to get his wife an apartment to this place where we're at. And so in the re-engineering process of writing this, I wrote out these 8 keys, and I'll tell you them in chunks. There's three levels. Okay, so the book is written like a video game, and there's three bosses that you have to beat in the video game.
Nice.
The first level, you need what are called the character keys. These are things that you develop in here. Without these things, and this first level might feel like fluff, but literally without these three, there's three character keys in the book. Without them, you're cooked. You won't even get past the second boss.
Wow.
And I talk about what those are. And then the second layer are called skill keys. These are not just like get better at photography or videography, but one of those skill keys are cross-functional skills. I talk about what that is, I talk about what that's not, and I talk about the number one list of cross-functional skills every creative professional needs to learn if they want to increase their value. And these skills, if you learn them, your value in the market will go up. And then the third level, there's some other skill keys that are really good. But the third level is the most important. And I wrote it in the order that I did because if you don't start with the first level and then get the second, you'll never, ever, ever get to the third. The third level are the relationship keys. And I call them strategic relationship keys for a reason. And I'll share one of those. One of those relationship keys is something that I call door people. And what a door person does is a door person walks you into a level of success you could never get to on your own. But that's
Mm.
not all that they do. What a door person has the potential to do in your life as a creative person, really anybody, is take you from incremental change. So think incremental change, right? You get a little bit better at your creative thing. You get a raise at work. There's lots of people online that will teach you how to get incrementally better, and you should. But if you want exponential overnight exponential change, it takes people being in proximity to people that can walk you into opportunities you would never have access to. And so I talk about door people in my life who literally walked me into industries and projects that 3x my income overnight. And you can't get that in courses. You can't get that in college. You definitely can't get that going to conferences. You can only get this exponential growth with these strategic relationships. And so I talk about the two or three kinds of strategic relationships that those are. I just gave everybody one. It's called door people. I've got some stories in there of door people who walked me into things. And so it's not a book about how to get better at creativity. It's not a book about how to use AI. The book talks about AI and how to approach it a little bit and some of the problems that it's creating. But there's at the end of each chapter, there's actionable workbook type things that you can go through that help you actually build a roadmap towards becoming this person that the book is giving you a roadmap for. And so at the beginning of the book, everybody has an exercise that they go through in here where they define what abundance means for them. And that's the most important thing because what it might be for Paul might be different than what it is for Brandon. And so I share my definition of abundance, and then I give everybody a chance and a prompt to fill in how you define abundance. Because if you don't get clear on what you want, you'll actually never go after it and achieve it. And then the book, learning the 8 keys, actually become the blueprint to going after your abundance. You get to defeat the bosses. It's like a video game. There's 3 levels. It's fun. I wrote it fun on purpose because I'm a creative and I don't have an attention span to read like a boring technical book. And so I didn't want to make it that.
Yeah, man, that is so awesome. Well, as we wrap this up, one of the questions that I like asking is what is a question or a head smack that you wish I'd asked you about?
I wish you would have asked me what is one of the hardest things about being creative for a living.
And so, what is it?
I can speak from two perspectives. Um, I care so much about what I make. I care. Here's the hardest thing for me, caring more about what your client is paying you to do than they care about it. Client pays you $20,000 to design something, 30,000 to outline a strategy. I care so much about how good, how accurate, how insight backed it is that I will demolish my own well-being sometimes or my teams or when they don't care or they just like scrap it and disregard it, I will feel like hurling myself off a ledge in certain moments. And I battle this every single day and I love it. It's what makes me really great at what I do, but sometimes caring so deeply is really bad for business and you have to learn how to remove your emotions and I constantly want to save. I want to save everybody. I mean, look at the title
Yeah,
of the book.
yeah, yeah,
Paul, I'll just be honest with you. I want to make so much money, not because I want the money, but because I want to employ every creative person I meet.
yeah.
I want to bring them into the amazing culture that I have. I want to give them amazing salary. I want to give them, we have unlimited PTO. I want to be so successful so that I can bring every creative person in and so that I can teach them and equip them and then send them off into other things. But it's hard. You can't always think that way. So
Right.
being emotional and learning how to like rein that in is so hard. And I'm working on it, but I'm sure somebody can resonate with what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. That is so good. So, how do people get a hold of the book? How do they get a hold of you if they want to learn more about you? What's the best way to do that?
If you're a struggling creative person, go to savethecreatives.com. I've got a bunch of other stuff on there that you can get access to. If you just want to get a paperback copy of the book, just go to Amazon. It's there. But on the website, we have like an audiobook, and I've got a couple other resources, and there's some things there that you can get access to. But if you're just like, nah, just take me to the book, go to Amazon and you can find it. You can find more about me on just my website, brandontriola.com. And if you're a B2B tech company of any kind, you want to learn more about what we do or get in touch, forest-co.com. That's forest with two R's, forest-co.com. I think if you go to forest.co, it reroutes. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to connect. I'm on Instagram, so if you're creative and you just want to like get to know me a little bit and see some of my other content that I'm constantly putting out to help creative people, check me out on Instagram. Give me a follow. I'll try to give you a follow back, and I'd love to connect there.
Well, Brandon, this has been amazing. Absolutely, have loved this conversation. I love talking to creatives and hearing their heart, hearing their passion, and hearing their thoughts, especially in this ever evolving, area time that we're in when it comes to creativity and creative output and creative services. And so, I do encourage you to get the book. I think you also have a community that's attached to it, right?
Yep. If you go to savethecreatives.com, you can see how you can get access to I have a free school community and it's growing every day. So would love to get you in there. We're going to be doing some fun stuff in there this year.
All right, man. Well, you have a good one. Be sure to check all of those links out, savethecreatives.com. Check out Amazon to get the book. If you want to learn more about Brandon, go to brandontriola.com. I'll have all of those links in the show notes. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thank you, Brandon. This has been a great conversation.
Paul, thanks so much, man. Yeah, it's been super fun.
You are listening to Conversations with Misfits, Mavericks, and Trailblazers.